been shot while doing an event at Utah Valley University. Condition is unknown. He's currently in the hospital. He was at Utah Valley University doing one of his campus events, trying to engage in debate and conversation with people who disagree with him. And in the process, he was struck by a round. It's unclear exactly where he was hit. Witnesses say that he was shot and reacted with his head going back, saying that they saw blood coming down. Justin Hickens, who was a witness there, said, "We heard a loud bang. I saw a bunch of blood coming out of Charlie. I saw his body kind of kick back and go limp, and everybody drop to the ground." So this is obviously a developing situation. We're bringing you the information as it comes to us. Certainly a very unfortunate situation that's occurred regarding the shooting and part of a wave of violence that we've seen against right-wing individuals. Charlie Kirk, founder of Turning Point, which does outreach onto primarily college campuses, trying to engage with college students from a conservative point of view. These events here, this event was in the outdoor open area of their courtyard. There were hundreds of people at the event. Security says that there was no metal detectors or securities set up at the time. Joining us, we have Tom Fawbush joining us on this live updating event. Tom?
Yeah, hey, Andrew. What a tragic moment here. This is just, you're speechless. And then when you see some of the video, you're just really taken back at how raw this was to everyone witnessing. We can break down the actual moment, from a ballistic standpoint and all that later. But just this is a real tragic moment, and I'm just sick for our country, sick of this left wing, and I'm going to call it what it is. And I think we all agree on this show today. There's an epidemic of left wing violence. And this is, and we would have had this conversation several times about President Trump if it wasn't for the grace of God. And so, and all these trans shootings and all this. And so this is a problem, and it's not being addressed properly. And I just pray to God that Charlie survives today. And, because if not, it's going to send us into a real dark place as far as mistrust between, the different factions of this country that have different worldviews. And it's like, well, you mean we can't even have a debate without you taking us out with violence? So if we can't talk and be influential from our perspectives, then it's just really, it's concerning. It's really, really concerning. So.
Yeah, Tom, I agree with you. I think as well that the shooting by Luigi, of the CEO of the health insurance company, was really a turning point in our culture. I think historically we'll look back at that and say the response from the culture of many people celebrating that shooting instead of addressing it as it was a true violent act is quite an issue. Joining us as well is State Senator Aaron Reed. He's a former Navy SEAL. Aaron, thanks for joining us today on this unfortunate day.
Yes, sir. How y'all doing?
Not the best day, but
yeah, I'm getting the news as well. I just got a call to join in on this, and I'm trying to catch up on the news. It appears to be a shooter. I've got a lot of people texting me, a lot of people trying to call right now and ask what's going on. It appears to have been a rifle round.
Aaron, I've got this coming in. A spokesperson for Utah Valley University said in a statement that the suspect shot Kirk from the university's Lucy Center, a building roughly 200 feet away from where he was shooting. The suspect has been taken into custody. It is not a student. the spokesperson added. So a building 200 feet away is what Utah Valley University is saying where the shot was taken from. You've shot a lot of guns. Is that a far shot?
Not necessarily. If you know how to shoot 200 yards, 200 feet, I'm seeing 200 yards on one report. If you're reading 200 feet, that's quite a big difference. But 200 yards, 2 football fields, that's a pretty legit distance for most.
Before coming on air, I'd actually looked at Utah Valley University's gun policy. And according to their website, unless you have a concealed carry permit, which it seems based upon the noise and the distance, he's probably shot with a rifle, so probably wouldn't qualify for a concealed carry permit. But unless you have a concealed carry permit, you're not to have guns on campus. What do you think the Democrat response will be to this shooting in the coming days? Obviously, immediately they might pause a minute as they try to find out more, but how do you think they're going to try to twist this to their agenda?
Well, unfortunately, we're probably going to hear a lot of people praising it, because of the insanity of the left. My kids are already telling me they're on college campuses and they're calling me and telling me they're hearing people laughing about this situation, which is very sad to me. The left is very commonly never lets a disaster go to waste. So I'm sure they're going to try to spin this in a way that, see, we told you that guns are dangerous. Yet here we are, a strong conservative voice is being, shut down by a radical leftist.
Good point.
Same story.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that they will try to go to some sort of gun control measures on this, despite the fact that, the gun wasn't allowed on campus. The gun, if it was being used by a rifle, it certainly wasn't, based upon their policy that I saw online, allowed to be there. And so
it's a gun-free zone.
It wasn't, based upon their policy, it wasn't a quote-unquote gun-free zone. It was simply it is gun-free unless you have a concealed carry permit, and then you may carry concealed on campus. That was the policy that I read on their website. So at the time of the shooting, Charlie was apparently talking about transgenderism, and this ties into, as Tom, you were talking about earlier, in regards to the violence kind of surrounding the transgender movement. Aaron, here in Kentucky, we've taken some steps to ensure they get proper mental health care. How badly do you think it's damaged the psyche of some of these people who are radical on these issues, that they haven't been receiving proper mental health care, instead of been told, hey, if you think you're this gender, you must be, let's chop off body parts and pump you full of hormones?
Yeah, well, there's so many different levels to that, but I'm constantly just baffled by the angle that they take on this. It's no one's going to commit murder or mass murder or active shooter type of situation unless they are insane. It is always mental illness. It's always going to be the same story. They're going to be blaming the gun. The gun jumped up and did this evil, when it's obvious this epidemic of mental illnesses that we have in our country. You can go back to the mental illness, or you can even go to the spiritual side of things. Mm-hmm. It's not always a battle between flesh and blood, but a battle. It's a spiritual battle at this point. And we need prayer. That's for sure. I know my family is praying right now for Charlie and his family. And I heard that I heard you guys before had a battle prayer before the show started, and that was good.
Yeah, obviously it's a spiritual battle that we need to be active in. Now, one of the news stories, real quick with you, Aaron, here, one of the stories we keep seeing is about security on campus. NBC, CNN are talking a lot about how there was no security for the event, checking people in, looking at images of the event. It was held in the quad, wide open. Aaron, you have some experience with obviously dealing with operational security. Is there any way to kind of secure these kinds of events to prevent something like this?
unfortunately, most of these security type of situations are really designed to look like the appearance of security. You know, it's not hard if someone is committed to sneak a firearm into this situation. And if they're, and looking at the video right now that's up on the screen here, and you can see, you know, buildings 200 feet, 200 yards away, you know, give or take, all different. So 250 feet. Okay, so that's under 100 yards if that's the case. So that's not a very long shot. And with a rifle round, you know, a braced round, I can see different spots where a shooter could be just looking at this video. You know, a direct angle coming down, and you know, really, unless they've got some, unless the security detail there is up in the building searching as well, they're not gonna have a chance. I mean, I can tell you that most, unless the Secret Service or some type of a high-end security detail is running the show, all they're going to have is people down there by the guy that they're trying to protect, and they're going to be there. Really, if someone charges the stage, they can take them out, or if someone brings a pistol up real close, they can return fire pretty quick. But you know, if it's a guy like Charlie Kirk who probably had a detail of about 3 or 4 people, I'm just guessing, plus the local security or the police departments were probably there because they know that.
Yeah, reports say they were there and involved in security of the event.
He does have a you know, a pretty good amount of haters out there, you know.
Clearly.
So there's no telling of how many, you know, I'm not sure about this certain campus, the Utah Valley University.
Yeah, Utah Valley University. Utah is a pretty conservative area.
Yeah,
the campus itself is considered pretty conservative. Most of the people who were there,
well, the fact that you can carry a gun with a concealed carry permit on that campus is that's better than most campuses I've ever heard of. I know in Kentucky.
Absolutely. And several of the witnesses there that they've interviewed have said, yes, it's a very conservative area. People were excited to be there. We saw before the event them throwing out shirts. Joining us as well is Bob Scott. Bob, thank you for taking out some time to join us. Your reaction to this unfortunate situation.
Incredibly stunned and saddened, you know, about it. And I'm sure folks have had a chance to see some of the videos that are going around. And he very clearly took a round, it looks like, to the neck area when it happened. Ironically, I was just out passing Utah Valley University about 2 weeks ago on a Western trip that I was out with my family, and so I kind of know that area, and they are very conservative in that state. And Aaron can tell you, we saw Charlie at a Nate Morris event that he did, was the lead speaker. I don't know, about a month and a half ago, you know. And he did have security with him, you know, as he should. But I even thought, to be very honest with you, as in my opinion, he is the new Rush Limbaugh, you know, of conservatism, and
Right.
a brilliant young man, only 31 years old. I was concerned for his safety because, you know, he goes and does these events, and I know he has security with him.
Oh yeah, he's hanging it out.
But you know, if somebody, and Aaron said it, if somebody's determined enough, you just don't think that's going to happen in the United States of America. But guess what? It does, and it's happened many times before. And also, we talked about it, and you hate to point the finger in one direction, but it is the far left that is executing these atrocities, you know, right now. And we as a people, I can tell you, I've prayed, and I know many people are praying. I know I saw Glenn Beck. And okay, we're getting a report too now that and again, folks, this is fluid. The suspect is not in custody. That's the latest report, you know. So I could tell you.
Yeah, we certainly are seeing some different statements on it. Originally saying in custody, not is in custody in this building. It's been difficult getting information out of the area.
Something about this, I'll just say it smells. to say the least, with regard to, especially now that more and more information is coming out. And again, all we can do right now as Christians is to pray, and trust God in this situation, and believe for a miracle. And that's what it's going to take, a miracle.
Tom, coming back in, as we said, we're just now getting updates. Originally, the Utah Valley University said that they had somebody in custody shooting from a building 250 feet away or so. Now reports are coming in that they do not have a suspect in custody. It certainly seems interesting that we are getting different reports on that, especially with the amount of police and security that were at the event, identifying what was going on. Tom, what are you hearing? Anything different? What's your reactions?
No, yeah, I just want to just respond to what Bob was saying about who Charlie Kirk is. And I think those that follow conservative media and follow politics heard of him and know who he is on some level. But if you followed closely what happened in 2024, what happened with the campaign, to get the Trump campaign, Kirk was probably one of the most instrumental, if not, I would say probably the most instrumental person in getting, especially young people to look at a conservative solution, a conservative worldview to issues, and someone that was able to use social media so effectively that some of the top, some of the most highly viewed TikToks, which, if you're not into TikTok, it may not mean a big deal, but that's a big deal. Some of the highest viewed TikToks were Charlie Kirk videos doing exactly what he's doing right today on college campuses, debating students, encouraging students, and not doing it in a way. And Charlie he does such a wonderful way. He'll debate somebody, but he does it in such a good spirit, where he wants to try to win the young person over.
Tom, what do you think it says? I mean, on that subject, what do you think it says about the fact that you have somebody, he's not shutting down opposition. It's not like he's you don't have the opportunity using the same platform, reaching the same amount of people as he has, to disagree with him in a reasonable way, a respectable way. It's not as if he's a dictator lording over people, but you are able to engage with him in these settings. He's coming out in the public to engage, being shot. What does that say about our ability to disagree and get along into the future?
I tell you what it says, and I'm going to go back to what Aaron said. It shows that the left right now, because history changes, but the left right now is motivated by some evil. There's some evil. There's an evil undercurrent to the radical left. And if you can't be afraid to say that in this day and age, because I think if you can't view the world in a good and evil plane, even a spiritual plane on some level, then you can't explain the world. You can't explain it. And
Tom, can you put any blame at the feet of people saying that if we can't trans children, it's trans genocide? Not letting them use the proper bathroom, you're literally killing them. I mean, how long can we use those kinds of words? And Democrats have used them for political advancement. How long can we use those words saying you're literally killing people, committing genocide before something like this happens?
Or that Charlie Kirk's a Nazi, or anybody on the right are the oppressors. And the reason why you're unhappy, Mr. Trans person, is because all these oppressors in society are making your life miserable. So you're the victim. Okay, so and guess what? The trans folks are generally a little bit mentally unstable. Let's just say it. There's a reason why they're having this gender dysphoria stuff, because they're having some mental issues. So you encourage them and you tell them, hey, you're a victim. And the oppressor is Aaron Reed and Bob Scott and Tom Fallbush and Andrew Cooper Ryder. And so, I'm going to solve this, and you watch the Luigi thing, and look, he's a hero, and everyone online worships the Luigi now. This is where, it just makes perfect sense. This is where we're at, and it's just now. Well, here's what I'm afraid of, Coop, and I'd love to know everybody's opinion on this. Is what does this do to other conservatives, other influencers, other people like ourselves. We're doing a local conservative television radio show and media, social media program right now. We do some of the same work that Charlie Kirk does, right? And so what does that do to us? How does this, because that's the effect that the left wants. So whoever did this had that effect. They want to chill opposition. They want to, you want to talk, you want to say things like Charlie Kirk, watch what happens.
Well, it certainly chills the ability to get the message out there. You can go ahead, and if you want to join in to the conversation, you can text us at 502-571-0970. Donald Trump tweeted this out: "We must all pray for Charlie Kirk, who has been shot. A great guy from top to bottom. God bless him." And absolutely, God bless Charlie Kirk, and we must all be praying for him. Trump's got that right. And to your point about chilling speech, frankly, in the future, conservatives on campuses doing these kinds of events might be forced to have them at least in closed off rooms and controlled areas. And that limits crowd size. I mean, you see videos from the event. There are, it looks like thousands of young people there to hear from Charlie Kirk. And where else can you hold that event but outside? So necessarily you end up having to have these events indoors with more controlled situations, and that shuts off people from being able to attend these events, and it limits people's ability to receive this information, because the real reason we all know why Charlie Kirk does this is to reach those people who he actually disagrees with. If it's a ticketed inside event, the chances they show up to it and hear something slimmer than if they're walking by, see a large crowd, and want to hear what's going on. It truly stops the spread of a viewpoint to take these kinds of actions.
Yeah, well said. And I had another thought that crossed my mind. And well, first of all, I'd love to know your all's thoughts on that. Is this going to chill conservative speech? I'd love to hear your perspective on that. But here's something else that came to mind. What's going to happen? The left is going to blame Charlie. They're going to say, Charlie, if you didn't say the things you said, if you weren't so strident about President Trump, if you weren't so anti-trans, if you weren't, and they're going to somehow, they may say, oh, we're against murder and violence. But if you didn't say the things you said, you may not have been attacked. And that's, we cannot, as conservatives, as people believe the truth and believe a worldview that we all represent here, we cannot be. This should not chill us. We should embolden us and say, listen, if that man's brave enough to go on campus and take a bullet for what he believes in, all of us need to really think through that. Are we really ready to fight the battle, the good fight? So anyway, Coop, back to you. So,
thank you, Tom. Bob, your thoughts on everything Tom just said and going through everything?
Yeah, I've been following, obviously, what's being said online, and the Associated Press is reporting that Charlie Kirk is alive, but obviously in critical condition at the hospital right now. Also, his own organization is saying the same thing. So that's a miracle, and Aaron Reed, who is joining us today, can definitely, obviously he's a former SEAL that's been in over 300 engagements involving life and death on a routine basis. To take a shot like most people that I know in the military would say that kind of shot is unsurvivable, where apparently he took it in the throat area. I don't know what Aaron would have to say about that, but Aaron, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I saw the up close video, and it's tough to survive an impact like that, especially with a rifle round. With a pistol round, it's not as much of a hit. That speed kills in bullets a lot of the times. And you're talking about, we can get into ballistics, and I could talk about that for a long time. But rifle bullets versus pistol bullets are a big difference with the impact and how fast the bullet is moving. But in the video that I saw where it hit him in the neck, and he instantly stiffened up and he started bleeding out. It's tough to survive a hit like that But if he's got good medical guys on scene who are skilled in stopping or slowing the bleeding down, they can get him to a trauma surgeon quickly, then he could have a chance. I mean, you only have so much blood in your body, and that we have to stop the bleeding as fast as possible. As a nation of warriors and statesmen, and we just have to reject all violence and reassert that this is an attack on the First Amendment. This is an attack on free speech.
Yeah.
Charlie was an icon, or is an icon. He's still around. Speech is our weapon, not bullets.
Yes.
And we have this here. And speaking of the transgender violence, at the time he was shot, he was handling a question about transgender mass shooters. An audience member had asked him, "Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?" Kirk said, "Too many." The same audience member went on to say the number is 5 and proceeded to ask if Kirk knows how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years. Kirk said counting or not counting gang violence, and then seconds later, the sound of a pop is heard and the crowd screams. So he was literally answering a question about mass shooters, specifically transgender mass shooters, and engaging in a debate on that, a conversation about it, at which point he was shot. And we don't know the motivations completely yet of the shooter, though obviously we can make a guess that he took issue with the conservative viewpoints that Kirk put out. Tom, your reaction to that exchange happening right before he was shot?
Just the what's the word? Irony. I can't believe he was discussing that topic at that moment, and a lot of things go through my mind. Was that person asking the question? Was he part of this or something? I can't imagine that. Maybe it was just random, but my goodness, we have an epidemic of left-wing violence. We have an epidemic of it, and I think it's now the responsibility of those on the left, people of goodwill on the left, to stop this. Right? Those on the right, we have no influence over the radicals over there. We occasionally the right will get some radicals. We have them under control. We know who those people are, and we shun them and we shut them down. The left does not know how to do that. And as a matter of fact, the left seems to get energy off of that. If you go right now on Twitter and Blue Sky and all these social media, I've seen some of the posts. People are posting and they're laughing and they're celebrating this. And so it is up to the left. You guys got to stop this for the sake of this country. It's up to you all to get
Tom,
this
do you
fixed.
think these kinds of actions where they are resorting to violence and then celebrating it, do you think the American public at large, I would like to think, will react to that by saying, look, this is crazy. Clearly a far faction that has lost their mind. And in the end, you would hope that those viewpoints end up losing out because they are evil. We can tell by the willingness to take these actions. Do you think that ends up leading to these kinds of viewpoints losing more in the public view?
I hope so, because I think what you've seen over the past decade is the average American who doesn't pay attention much to politics. They have been somewhat awakened to this craziness, this woke ideology, all this transgender stuff. The average person sees this stuff and it turns them off and it pushes them away, and that's why we have such a momentum in our movement, in our political side of the debate. The conservatives and the MAGA influencers and Trump and everything we're doing here has a lot of momentum because the average American's woken up. They realize the left is a real threat, and if this doesn't just put an exclamation point on it, I don't know what does.
And we are hearing confirmation it wasn't 200 feet. Looks like it was 250 yards. So it was a little bit further. Certainly points to a rifle being used in that shooting, not just with the noise, but the distance as well at that length. I do mention it is somewhat interesting. J.D. Vance tweeted out, "Dear God, protect Charlie in his darkest hours. Tweeted out a photo of him with Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump Jr. It says, say a prayer for Charlie Kirk, a genuinely good guy and a young father. And that is right. He is a father, I believe, to 2 children. And it is interesting, the shot taken from 200 yards away. That was about the distance the shot at Butler, Pennsylvania at Trump was taken as well. Aaron, what is the problems with security at that range? I mean, we now have 2 shootings over the last year or 2 here at conservative figures from about that 200-yard range. Is there a lot of operational security problems at that distance? Is that why they're exploiting that?
Oh yeah. There's a perimeter. I'm sure they had security, different levels of security perimeters up to the center stage there. You've got your stage area, and you can see a couple of guys kind of standing at parade rest, sort of at the ready. And then you'll have folks at another perimeter, kind of where the people who have kind of been ushered in, the spectators who are there, and then you'll have the outer perimeter. And, the only way to get past that is to have a long range rifle. And if you're up in the building, you have a bird's eye view.
And speaking of chilling conservative speech, obviously needing to put in place security out that 200 yards, setting up that 200-yard perimeter, I would imagine that comes with an increased cost that certainly will hold back the ability for more conservatives to have more events like these. Aaron, do you know any idea of how many more men you would need to go ahead and secure a perimeter that's 200, 300 yards back to prevent these kinds of shootings?
You would need a full team. You probably need 15, 20 or more. Pretty high trained folks. The perimeter, it's almost impossible to lock it down completely. We're talking about Secret Service or
we settle our differences
not
by
security details. It's
not by violence, but through speech and dialogue, and that's how we do it.
Yeah, it's certainly of concern about the security aspect. I don't know how else we can address these issues, and how do we continue to have conservatives on campuses, conservatives doing these kinds of events.
It's just not feasible to have everything locked down. You have to go along with what the normal threat is. And, I'm guessing for a Charlie Kirk event, the normal threat would be one of the students kind of rushing the stage, or, maybe a knife or maybe a pistol. You never know. But typically we're not dealing with people trying to assassinate guys like Charlie Kirk, and this appears to be an assassination attempt where they shot at him with a long range rifle.
And
that's a pretty upstaged, upgraded situation than what that security detail was even imagining could happen.
A lot of times, Aaron, and this is just your thoughts on this, before you start to see more group armed actions in countries as they become destabilized, you start to see more targeted assassinations first, like these, especially when you look at Charlie Kirk. Generally speaking, he's got pretty, I would say, viewpoints that the vast majority of conservatives would agree with, a lot of viewpoints that the majority of Americans would agree with, and yet striking out at this. What do you think it says about the future of the stability of the country? Do we start to see more mass armed conflicts that this is leading to, more assassinations, or do you think we're somehow able to kind of come together and tamp this down?
I hope we're able to come together and tamp this down, but, unfortunately, the reality is we've got something called Trump derangement syndrome, and that's something that I'm sure that Charlie Kirk and his haters were very, very much infected with, and even more so. I mean, he had a knack, one of the smartest guys I've ever seen that could take, the facts and present them in a way that irrefutable by the crazy left, who's usually really good at debating craziest things.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Aaron Reed. I think it is worth noting this situation is very fluid. We are getting different reports going on, and as we are fighting, this is truthfully the most recent flare-up in a fight over something I think most of you all would agree is the soul of our nation. Richard Nelson joining us from the Commonwealth Policy Center. Richard, you have events. I've done events, and sometimes this is at the back of my mind when I'm doing things. How do you think this affects any kind of events you hold moving forward?
Yeah, glad that I could join you all. I wish the occasion would be with different circumstances. Andrew, we have done events actually in Louisville, where the TV station is located, and we have had to have police protection because of the nature of some of the topics. We've had people, in fact, Bob Scott knows about this. He was involved with one years ago. And unfortunately, there are certain topics that seem off limits to some people. Just talking about the issue, having an event, bringing major speakers in. There's some people who would rather not have that event go on and have that perspective shared, and that's the reality of where we are today. I think that this event, by the way, I'm still in shock. I got a message from a friend maybe a half hour ago who said, he just texted me, "I'm in shock." And I said, "What's going on?" Well, I immediately got on the various news outlets, and he had shared with me, or I found that Charlie Kirk was shot. So my heart is heavy. I'm grieved over it. I think part of this is this is the culmination of what happens when a culture loses its moral bearings, and where civility is lost, and where people think they can settle debates at the end of a gun barrel. And I'm grieved and sickened by it. And we need to pray. I think the best thing we can do is, and you know what, the political left can point and criticize all day long, but I think all of us here agree that there's a spiritual battle that is taking place. And the place for believers to begin the spiritual battle is on their knees, where we go to God and seek his mercy. We ask God to restore Charlie's health, to guide the hands of the doctors and the trauma specialists, and for him to have mercy on our country as well. This is a real spiritual battle that we are in the middle of.
And it is unfortunate, even as you hold local events, you'll see so much of this quick to violence. I myself in 2021 was hosting a protest down at the Capitol, and there were counter protesters on the other side. Camera guys were just kind of working the line. They weren't getting in their faces, just kind of working down the line. And as they got closer to one woman, she actually pulled out a knife and threatened them with it. Just a camera guy just walking probably 10, 20 feet away from her, pulled out a knife and threatened him with it. It actually turned out to be a state worker for some reason that was able to find time there to attend a counter protest. Bashir had actually greeted them, shook hands, and took pictures with them right beforehand. And so you do see those violent reactions, even with just local protests going on. It's I think, Richard, it does point to, we need to realize the fight we're in, the fight over this nation, because the left is certainly viewing this as a war. I think that's pretty clear, don't you?
I think that there's very clearly a culture war. It's a civil war of values. It's a war over, is there a definition of right and wrong? I mean, this, as you had shared earlier, Charlie Kirk was speaking on the issue of transgender shootings, and it was right when he had brought that up, or maybe taken a question, that a shot rang out and struck him. One of the things I think that we've lost is the idea that in this country, the United States of America, we have this First Amendment freedom to speak, this First Amendment freedom to gather. Both of those freedoms were exercised at this Turning Point USA event, and we should welcome those events. The political left can have those events. Those in the middle can have those events. But one thing that should outrage all of us is when violence is resorted to, when you have targeted assassination attempts towards anybody. It should be roundly condemned across the political spectrum. This is an opportunity for us to, if you will, join hands across the political aisle, where we can defend First Amendment freedoms. And I'm afraid, by the way, that too many of us forget our constitutional freedoms. They forget what the First Amendment stands for. The alternative, when we forget what our basic freedoms secured by the Constitution are, the result is what we saw earlier today, where you have political assassination attempts. And that's not an option. And this means that those on the right need to reach out to those across the aisle. We roundly condemn this. We will work towards civility. Pastors, I want to encourage you to pray for our nation, to lead your congregations in prayer this Sunday. Perhaps there'll be prayer gatherings tonight. It's a Wednesday evening services take place tonight. But there is a crisis, very clearly a crisis in our country, Andrew, and we can't sit back and wait for somebody else to take the lead. I would say conservatives should take the lead on this right now.
Now, Richard, I do also want to bring this up. This was the first stop on Charlie Kirk's The American Comeback Tour that he was American Comeback Tour that he was launching to tour across the nation, talking about Americans' comeback, and to end up being shot at that. We also have this breaking. At least 3 injured after shooting at Denver area high school, officials say. At least 3 students are in critical condition after a shooting at Evergreen High School in Evergreen, Colorado, where more than 100 law enforcement officers are working to clear the school room by room as it remains on lockdown. No suspects are in custody, and the authorities are working to determine whether there was one or multiple shooters involved, said Jackie Kelly, public information officer for the sheriff's department. The tragedy marks the 47th shooting that took place at a school in the United States so far this year, 24 of which were on college campuses and 23 on K through 12. That shooting occurred less than an hour after the Utah Valley University shooting. You know, it is interesting. We are having this culture of violence. Obviously, we don't know many details about that shooting, but it does point to a reliance that our communities, our individuals, our young people are seeking towards violence to solve their issues rather than communicating with one another, engaging in debates. And it certainly is a sad fact that this continues to occur across the nation. Obviously, this is fluid as it's coming in. Last we heard about Charlie Kirk's condition. He's in critical condition in the hospital, but is currently alive. That has been the official statement from Turning Point USA up to this moment. We are watching this live here. Richard, what is your reaction? I mean, we've obviously seen a rash of shootings across the nation. We are coming off the Minneapolis shooting. We have this school shooting today on top of Charlie Kirk being shot. What's your reaction to that?
You know, Andrew, we didn't have school shootings 40 years ago, and now we're at a crisis. You mentioned 47 school shootings across the country to date, and I don't know if that included the spring semester or if this is just from beginning of the school year in August until now. In either case, 47 school shootings is way too many. And I've got to ask myself...
Hold on, I'm cutting in here. Sorry, cutting in real quick. This is being reported by CNN, okay? It says President Donald Trump has announced Wednesday that conservative activist Charlie Kirk has died after being shot during an event in Utah. Trump wrote on Truth Social, "The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you." That is being reported. CNN has reported that Donald Trump put that out on Truth Social. Tom?
If that's true, I think we're all heartbroken, obviously, and our prayers go to his family and to this country. But the righteous indignation I have right now is I don't know what to do with it. I'm a bit upset right now. I was reading some tweets on X just now. Elon Musk just was responding to somebody. He said it very well. He said the left is the party of murder. The left is the party of murder. And that needs to sink in. That needs to sink into everybody in this country. You know, if you're not sure about which side you're on, you know, this should be very clear now. You know it. And there's some other comments. I was looking at an MSNBC commentator. It was basically, you know, reflecting what I was saying earlier, that they were saying, well, if Charlie didn't make all these awful comments, this wouldn't have happened to him. They're actually saying this on the air. They're actually saying this. So we've got a real problem in this country, and I don't know if us on the right can fix it other than just point it out and just shun these people. We need to shun them and point out how inhumane they are, and because for the sake of our country, we got to resolve this.
Aaron, your thoughts here at this moment that Trump has truthed out about Charlie Kirk's death?
Yeah, it's shocking, man. I mean, I'm somewhat in shock as well, and I didn't want to believe that it was a mortal wound, that they would be able to, that our medical professionals could in fact save him. But I was very hopeful. But this is sobering news. And I tell you, when I looked at my Bible verse on my app here on my phone, the first thing that popped up, because I'd read this earlier today, was 1 Peter 5:8. You know, it's a spiritual warning. You know, be sober minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. And this just isn't spiritual rhetoric. It's a call to vigilance. You know, this world is a battlefield where forces, they're hostile to freedom and faith, you know, and that's us, you know, and we're all a target, you know, and, you know, we can pray for his family now and pray for our country because, you know,
I mean, he's
like
father to, I believe, two kids.
Yeah.
Have lost their father. If you're just now joining us, Charlie Kirk shot at Utah Valley University. Donald Trump has truthed out that Charlie Kirk has unfortunately passed away. He truthed out the great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you. So update on the Utah Valley University shooting. Charlie Kirk has passed away from that fatal gunshot wound, according to what Trump has sent out there. We haven't here yet seen any confirmation, though it is safe to assume if Trump is truthing that out, he probably has received that information. Richard, your reaction?
Yeah, the Washington Post just confirmed that Charlie Kirk is dead. I think an appropriate response, as we all have shown just here lately, is grief, sadness, and I think it's appropriate for us to pray. And if that's okay, I want to just lead us in prayer for Charlie and for his family. Heavenly Father, we come to you with heavy hearts. Father, burden for Charlie Kirk, his family. I ask that your hand would be upon his wife and his two children. And Father, I pray that this would not escalate and go any further. But I pray, Father, that you would bring healing and reconciliation and hope. You say in your word, blessed are the peacemakers. May you raise up peacemakers. Father, I ask for, again, your care and your compassion towards this Charlie's family. And I pray for your mercy to be upon this country. And may you raise up voices of clarity and conciliation and of mercy, Father. Be merciful to us, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Richard. In these times, obviously, prayer can be very powerful. Richard, can you just talk for a second here about as far as Charlie's passing goes, and a lot of people feel lost as far as why this happens, why these things continue to happen. What should the biblical truth should they find to comfort them in these hard times?
Yeah. Andrew, that's, first of all, we have a God who is, he's sovereign over all. He governs in the affairs of men, and he can comfort those as well, those who are grieving and those who are hurt. I believe in the God who can bring healing to a nation, and that's what we need. We're at a point in our nation where it is becoming so common, as you had mentioned just a few minutes ago, where school shootings are a regular occurrence, where we have young people today who find it totally okay to take high-powered weapons to schools to shoot their peers. We are a nation in crisis. We're a nation that needs the living God to intervene, and we as a people need to turn to him. And quite frankly, there is no hope. I'm convinced that there is no hope for our nation, for our political institutions, for the freedoms that we enjoy, for that next generation, apart from God showing mercy to us, changing hearts and minds, and turning people to himself, and people confessing Christ and turning to him. That's our ultimate hope, and I think Andrew, that is the biblical consolation.
Well, thank you, Richard. Bob, Scott,
Yeah.
your reaction here.
Well, devastation. To hear that, a light to America and the world has been taken away from us. Truly a man that was gifted of God. The good news is, and to echo upon and build upon what Richard just said, is Charlie knew the Lord, and the Word of God says to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. The truth of the matter is none of us know, when eternity is going to beckon. I'm sure when he got up this morning that he wasn't thinking about any of this. None of us were thinking about something like this happening, but it did happen. The good news is, and this is the good news of the gospel, is there is life beyond the existence we now see, and so Charlie is with the Lord right now, celebrating, and I know the Lord's saying to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into my rest." As for the rest of us that are left to pick up the pieces, my own mother passed away about a week ago, and it's been sobering to me. And she lived a good full life. She was 87, almost 88. And again, you look at this young guy, 31, that had so much more ahead of him. But, Romans 8:28 says that God works all things together for the good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. It's hard to see a purpose in this, but I'm trusting and believing that God is going to find a purpose in this, as we look to him right now as a nation, and we have to come together. That's the final thing I want to say. Those of you that are listening or watching right now, we have to come together. We have to come together as a people of faith, and we need to rise upon or above what just happened in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
Amen. Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, I just, I'm just thinking of two things. Charlie's legacy, who he was. Yeah, I'd say to use the word was. Who he is, and what is to us, all of us. Probably one of the brightest, um, I guess representatives of the conservative movement, in a mainstream way that also represented, the MAGA base very well, but also blended a lot of traditional Christian conservatism into his approach. And it was such a beautiful thing to watch him speak to people and just break down issues. And I was, my heart broke a few years ago when Rush Limbaugh passed away. I grew up on Rush. A lot of us did. Who's going to be the next Rush Limbaugh? Who's going to replace? And I was thinking, well, my heart was put at rest whenever I listened to Charlie Kirk. So, well, because he's younger than me, So, well, Charlie's. I got a lifetime listening to Charlie. He's going to be just this hero on the right that we can really draw from, and it was just taken away, and so I just pray for. And I want to add to Richard's prayer. I pray for 1,000 more Charlie Kirks to rise up in this country, to take that mantle and go on and do the Lord's work, and just just defend this country, defend our faith, and it's, I think it's a call to each and every one of us. And I'll say this as well: anybody in our lives, anybody that you are connected with that is celebrating this moment, you need to make note of this, who they are and what they're about. And I think there needs to be at very least, some social shunning of these people. They need to pay a price for celebrating something like this, because the left right now is celebrating it. And if I have anybody in my life that's like that, I'm going to point it out. Say, listen, that is, we're well, where we need to go with that. But it's just, yeah. But anyway, I think, at the end of the day, this is going to galvanize a righteous cause to do righteous things. And so there's, I just pray for that. And I pray for the country. So that's about all I can say at this point. I'm still upset. So.
Coming in from Gavin Newsom, He says the attack on Charlie Kirk is disgusting, vile, and reprehensible. In the United States of America, we must reject political violence in every form. It does leave one to question. Obviously, Democrats are a lot of them in the public space, not private Democrats on places like Blue Sky and X would be making different posts, not just rejecting the violence, but celebrating it. But the Democrats in public eye are going to say we must reject political violence in every form. And we hear this ad nauseum for them, but yet the rhetoric that they push out there, the rhetoric they endorse of this being a fight for democracy, our country is going to end if Republicans have power. They're literally committing transgenocide. They're literally committing violent acts by voting differently than you do. When that kind of rhetoric continues, it's definitely hard to see the Democrats' words followed through as they continue having that kind of rhetoric. I personally, listening to Republicans speak, will hear them talk about the soul of the nation and fighting for the policies we want to see in this nation instituted. But I don't hear oftentimes them pointing out specific people and saying the prominent Republicans pointing out specific people, publications pointing out specific people and saying these are violent, evil people that are literally committing genocide. They must be dealt with, like we see from the left attacking the right. Richard, do you see that trend as well?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to applaud Gavin Newsom's statement. It was bold, it was forceful. He didn't mince words. He condemned that attack. And I would encourage every Democrat, not just Democrats, but all across the political spectrum, to condemn that attack. Andrew, we shouldn't be surprised when there is political rhetoric that turns violent, that some people actually will carry out the violence. And I think that's what we saw here. We've seen political rhetoric targeted towards Charlie Kirk and other conservatives talking about transgenocide and things like that. By the way, we have been accused of that. Maybe the station here has been accused of that. The biblical doctrine says that we're all made in the image of God. That means everybody has dignity and value and worth. We're not for killing anybody. We're not for any kind of genocide. But we do have as a set of ideals that speak to reality, that speaks to wholeness and healthy living and flourishing. And we're going to speak to those things. We're going to continue to speak to those things. But when you see rhetoric elevated to the point of where it's targeting people, where it's naming names, it's accusing people of genocide, that is over the pale. That is something that is not reasonable discourse. It's dangerous discourse. And we're seeing what the result of that is today. And unless we pull the brakes and say, hey, enough is enough, no more, this is not acceptable. And here's where I would like to go with this. All of the news outlets that have any news commentators that in the past have ratcheted up the political violence, that have called people, trans genocidal maniacs, or called people dangerous to the republic. I think every single one of the presidents of these news organizations needs to clean house and say, that is not acceptable on the public airwaves. We will not have you here at ABC or CNN or CBS, wherever it might be. It starts there. Then it goes on to the political parties. The political parties need to make sure that people in their own parties are not ratcheting up the violence. They need to say, you are not welcome in this party. Pastors, if you have people in your churches that are ratcheting up the political violence, you need to have that conversation with them, and they need to publicly apologize, members of churches. Otherwise, they need to be booted out of the churches. Tom, to your point, there need to be consequences to violent political rhetoric. And this means that there's something for everybody to do, whether you're in the media realm, whether you're a political leader, whether you're a church leader, wherever you might be, you have some level of influence. And we need to begin using that influence today to weed people out of whatever association we have, church, business, schools. We need to weed people out and say, no, that is not acceptable.
Echoing those statements there, Richard, Republican Senator John Curtis, who is the senator from Utah, he said this about political violence in the U.S. He said it's really escalating. Reevaluate how we're talking about the issues. If we're honest, we're having conversations within families that are too heated. We're having conversation among friends that are too heated, and then that obviously escalates as it gets to a broader conversation. It's not healthy. It's not who we are. It's this is why it's so impactful to me. It's especially not who we are in Utah and Utah country where this happened. And I would hope we're better than that. Annie Bashir has tweeted this out. I strongly condemn the senseless attack on Charlie Kirk today. Political violence has no place in the United States of America. It further tears our country apart and sets us back versus moving us forward. Violence is always wrong, period. Aaron Reed, your response.
Yeah, it is. It's always wrong. And, we are absolutely right. We are in a culture war here. We, I tell you, I haven't been speechless much, but in this situation, I'm torn here. I'm dealing with a situation where, we've got the left and the right. And the left, it's like they're trying to drag us into some type of a war here with violence. And, as a Navy SEAL, as a warrior, I'm constantly torn with just because you can go and you can kill everybody in the room doesn't mean you should. So it's kind of like I'm dealing with these demons here because it's easy to take the low road. It's easy to resort to the violent side of things. And I think that's the temptation that we have right now in our country. All these folks on the right, we are capable as right-wing, patriotic, red-blooded Americans. We are extremely capable of violence ourselves. Yeah. And, but we are Christians as well. And God's given us, discernment and wisdom, and he's blessed us in a way that, we're not savages. Mm-hmm. And, I'm walking the tightrope here, as a warrior, and I'm doing my best, and I'm praying that God will guide me and my fellow patriots in a way that we can preserve America for our grandkids, because that's the goal. Proverbs says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, and this country is falling apart. And I pray that we're able to bring it back together and unite. And Godspeed. God help us.
Absolutely. Tom, your thoughts?
Well, I would just echo, not to make light of this, but Aaron, if you want to lead the posse to go get this guy, I'm behind you. I'm with you. So, because same way, my red bloodedness is up right now. I'm like, these people, I'm feeling the same way right now. But at the same time, the whole country sees how evil it is. It is so counterproductive. If you're just thinking, strategically from a political perspective, this is so counterproductive for the left. It is going to set them back a couple of elections, and it should, and it absolutely should. And so I mean, we can take stock in that. Maybe that, but this, I'd much rather have Charlie Kirk back. I'd much rather have Charlie Kirk, and so, but yeah, and to Richard's point, the rhetoric that the left has been using for decades, about the right is, we're all Nazis. We're all Nazis, right? We're these dangerous people. Well, what do you do with a Nazi? What do you, if you label us these people that are beyond the pale, that are threatening, that are oppressors, and we are oppressing all these victims, the transgenders, the women, minorities, just pick pick the universe of the oppressed victimhood under the woke system. Then what do you do with oppressors and Nazi? Well, you do this. So the logic is there, and it's Richard is spot on. The blame falls on the people that push that narrative, and the news organizations and just
networks as it is, just social networks, is that we should point that out to people. We should shun those people. They should pay a price for that rhetoric, especially going forward. And if they don't apologize for some of the stuff they've said in the past, I think there needs to be a real consequence. So
I think that does show a big difference between the left and right. And a lot of times you look at the issues such as whether that is being pro-life or the stance conservatives have on the transgender issue, that doesn't come from a place of hating the other person. It actually comes from a place of saying, look, this isn't what's best for you. It's not what's best for everybody involved. This isn't what's best for the nation. It's not even a selfish reaction in that way. It's a reaction to saying this is wrong to happen to people. Compared to on the left, you see a lot of the rhetoric tends to be centered around the self and what the self sees as it needs. And that, I think, centers and causes some of these violent outbursts, even outside of just the shooting death here of Charlie Kirk. Over the last few years, we've seen several issues. I know several of my friends who are more well known on the national landscape of things, not even public speakers, not even people who comment on policy, literally just people who tweet a lot on Twitter, statements other people have made, have faced interesting problems. Here in Louisville, one of the Twitter people I know, Nick Sorter, he has over 1 million followers on Twitter. He just posts on Twitter, his father here in Louisville was swatted, where somebody called in a fake issue happening at his father's home. They called in saying that somebody was being held captive in the home, which meant a response from SWAT here in Louisville, and an attempt to cause situations to occur that people respond to somebody banging down their door and they may get killed as well. I mean, those are issues that have been going on with conservative people being quote unquote swatted. Regardless of your beliefs or your viewpoints there, if you need force, violent force to enforce your viewpoints on others, I think it's quite clear you're on the wrong side of things. Wouldn't you agree, Bob?
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. Well said. And, I'm just sitting here thinking just a myriad of thoughts going through my mind. And again, I think all of us, every single one of us, all the listeners, viewers right now are just in a state of shock. There's no other way to put it. It's incredible that something like this would happen in America so publicly. And again, to a gentleman that was a rising star. In fact, he was a star, in the conservative movement. And again, the thing about Charlie was he was always very accommodating. It didn't matter who you were or where you came from. And again, at such a young age, 31 years old, he wasn't afraid to hear your side of the story. And that's where we have to get back to. I mean, can we get back there? I don't know. And to echo what everybody's been saying, and Richard talked about it earlier, these stations, these leftist, in my opinion, Marxist stations, CNN and the like, MSNBC, they need to be held accountable, for the rhetoric that they've been spewing out for now many, many years. And by God's grace, and let me tell y'all, it's going to take some miracles to happen. I know that our God is a miracle performing God, but it is going to take some major miracles to happen to keep this nation on course and from going into a tailspin, and but by the grace of God.
And so you're listening to 970 AM WGTK. Right now we're covering live. Charlie Kirk has been shot and killed during an event at Utah Valley University. He was having an event there, shot and killed today. And we'll continue with our live coverage. We're going to take a little break here, but stay tuned with us as we continue to bring updates on this unfortunate and horrific situation.
Hey, I was going to say, I'm going to have to hop off in about 15 minutes here.
And you're back here on Kentucky's Voice. We are covering live the shooting death of Charlie Kirk. He was at an event Turning Point USA was putting on at Utah Valley University when he was struck from a shot fired reportedly from a building about 250 yards away. As of right now, it has not been announced that a suspect is in custody. At the time of the shooting, Charlie Kirk was asked a question about how many transgender mass shooters there have been from an individual trying to challenge him on the subject, not from a conservative standpoint, but they were asking more as a challenging question. And while he was attempting to respond to that, he was struck, as I said, reportedly from a shot fired from about 250 yards away, fired with a rifle. The policies on campus, they did allow concealed carry, but no other carry of firearms on campus. People at the event said that there was no security to get into the event. Looking at the event, however, it was held outdoors in the courtyard with hundreds of people. My name's Andrew Cooper-Ryder, kind of anchoring this, covering this for you live, just kind of pulled in to do this. And we're joined by a couple of individuals as we talk about how do we recover from this? How do we come back? What does the future have for us in conservatives? How does this chill conservative speech? How does this affect the political discourse across the nation? And Richard Nelson from Commonwealth Policy Center, he's one of our guests here, lending his voice. Richard, your thoughts?
Yeah, of course, grieved as all of you are. We should be in prayer for Charlie's family and be in prayer for the nation, because this event, Andrew, does have a chilling effect on speech. And I think that's probably what the shooter intended to do. Obviously, he disagreed with Charlie Kirk and his views, but that is not the way that we settle our political differences. We have open debate, we have dialogue, we can have events like Charlie had at Utah Valley University, and this should be roundly condemned across the political spectrum. I'm happy to see that Governor Andy Beshear has condemned it. But then we've got to ask ourselves, what's the next step? And I'm thinking just practically here in Kentucky, Commonwealth Policy Center is doing a number of events. We've got 6 events scheduled over the next 7 weeks. And so do we pull back because of fear of violence? The answer is no, but we will make sure that we have security. My concern is that there are other people that have something valuable to share, other conservative leaders, conservative organizations that might be afraid to continue on with public events. I'd say this is not the time to shrink back. We don't give in to violence, and we don't give in to political assassinations, which is what this was, and we press on. In the meantime, we remain in prayer. We try to root out those violent voices that have been mainstreamed. And this is where news outlets all across the country need to root out those violent voices who are in their newsrooms or in their commentary sections. And that goes across the spectrum.
And we have Aaron Reed joining us, state senator here in Kentucky, former Navy SEAL. Aaron Reed, you know, one of the things amongst political violence we've seen recently has also been attacks on state level legislators, violent attacks. You're a state level legislator here in Kentucky, yeah. On top of being a conservative. How does this affect any kind of the security you feel for your family, any steps you take? Obviously, I know you're an avid Second Amendment advocate. And how does it affect your events into the future? Do you make different decisions going forward?
Well, yeah, absolutely. You know, I try to stay vigilant, and I try to have my family also be equally as vigilant. But, you know, we live in typically a peaceful world here in Kentucky. You know, we don't live in a war zone. But, you know, like I said earlier, you know, 1 Peter 5:8, you know, the devil roams around like a lion seeking who he can devour. You know, now more than ever, we must condemn violence unambiguously, not just in our words, but through our actions and accountability. You know, but we also have to rededicate ourselves to the civil discourse, ensuring campuses, media, and communities defend the right to speak and listen respectfully. That's, you know, respectfully is the key. You know, honor Charlie's legacy by rejecting the chaos and repairing our culture with courage.
I think as you talk about respectfully, it's incredibly important because it notes, and we said this earlier, the Charlie Kirk events are not events where people sit and just listen. You are invited to engage in debate, to share your ideas. And if your ideas are failing, and the public is rejecting your ideas, and you feel like you can't stand up there on an open platform and disagree and be able to defend what you have and what you believe, that leading you instead to take someone's life, leading to violence, certainly shows a certain sickness that we have too often infecting. We had another school shooting too in Colorado, a sickness of using violence instead of using your words, your actions, your ability. One of the things this relates to in a way is where you're finding value at as well. If you're finding value from other people's thoughts rather than maybe from your creator or from somewhere else, it's going to lead to more violent actions. Bob, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's right, Andrew. I think of, in fact, Tom and I talked about it on the radio show we did the other day. Ephesians chapter 6. We are daily, and this just amplifies it, what happened today in a spiritual battle. And I'll read a little bit from that. Finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power, put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle, now listen to this, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And Charlie, I think about, he's been to Kentucky numerous times. I mean, recently, I attended an event that he was at. I didn't have a chance to speak to him because he was literally being engulfed by fans of his. But I know he's been to the University of Kentucky to do one of his events that was, again, well attended. And again, may we all learn to operate with the same grace and compassion and truthfulness that Charlie Kirk operated with. There won't be another Charlie Kirk. I mean, he was truly a gift that the Lord gave us for this time such as this. And I am believing and I'm trusting that some good will come out of this. And again, I just want to encourage everybody to pray right now. Pray for his wife and 2 children. Just lift them up, and the whole Turning Point organization.
Absolutely. And those of you joining us, of course, we're covering live here locally the shooting death of Charlie Kirk at the Utah Valley University, where he's having an event there attended by hundreds and was an outdoor event. Reports right now is he was shot from a building about 250 yards away. A suspect hasn't been apprehended yet. We don't know much about him. Obviously, the nature of who Charlie Kirk was. I mean, a huge impact on our culture, obviously, as South Park even recently parodied him because he's such an impact on the culture and such a figure for the conservative movement and a conservative voice. Tom, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, it's just want to echo what Bob was saying. Just Charlie's approach to civil discourse is the right approach. I mean, he had such grace when he would deal with opponents of his, that were when he was discussing politics, especially with these young folks. I mean, just the grace and the way he would handle folks and the way he was very winsome. I mean, though he would have a sharp response but it was very winsome and also the way he wove in faith into his conversation and as a part of the solution, and the way he defended the Christianity and our Judeo-Christian traditions was so elegant and so masterful, and it was such a treasure to have someone like that on our side that kind of reflected conservatism and Christianity and as well, and it was just, and so Charlie Kirk. We talk about what's wrong with America, but Charlie Kirk is one of the solutions to the problems of America. He brought civil discourse and helped change narratives and change people's minds in a positive way, in a peaceful way, and so what we absolutely need is more of Charlie Kirk, more Charlie Kirks, more of what he did. And so let this, inspire us to do more of what he did, because it was so effective that those on the other side, the evil on the other side, targeted him for a reason, and so that shows you how I think a lot of those on the left are on the ropes, and this is a sign of that. And because what did he do in the last election? He helped basically win Pennsylvania. He motivated Turning Point USA to go out and do voter registrations and basically help win this last election. I mean, Charlie Kirk next to Donald Trump is probably the most influential person on American politics right now because of what he did with his organization, motivating to get out to vote efforts and registration efforts, and so he's the solution. And so we need to take what he did and pick up the mantle and move forward. And so I'm ready to do it, and we're ready to do it here on this station, on the Kentucky's Voice, and everything we're doing here. So.
Well, you've been listening to Kentucky's Voice on 970 AM here. We've been covering the unfortunate live story of Charlie Kirk. We're live on TV as well, WBNA, and also live on streaming, and covering the Charlie Kirk shooting at the Utah Valley University, and really its impact on the conservative movement moving forward, Charlie Kirk being a large part of that, and what effect does this have on our nation as a whole? Obviously, our thoughts and prayers go out to Charlie Kirk's family, his wife Erica, and his 2 children. And in this time, they need absolutely comforting. They've lost a husband, a father, the leader of their family. And for us as a nation as a whole, and as conservatives, we've lost a true leader in this nation for conservative values, conservative beliefs. And we have to wonder how this affects the ability to engage moving forward. Charlie Kirk was engaging on a college campus in debates that were open for people to join in and express their difference of opinions. And it was at that event that he was shot, which brings into the conversation about how do we disagree as a nation moving forward? How do we turn down the rhetoric, especially the rhetoric that says somebody else is committing genocide, is a Nazi, is literally a threat to your very existence? As long as we're peddling that kind of rhetoric out there, people will be called to violence. We'll be heading into some live coverage from Steve Bannon's War Room. He's covering it live. We've been covering it here locally. Thank you for tuning in to Kentucky's Voice. Our normal show is Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to noon. But thank you all for tuning in, and let's head over to that national coverage.
Thank you for
Yes,
being
Aaron.
here today.
Awesome. Appreciate you jumping in, bro. And Andrew, I don't know if you're still there or not.
Yeah, I'm still here.
You did a
Great
yeoman's
job. Yeah,
buddy.
great job. Yeah, you drove the bus wonderfully. That's
One place with things starting the film.
Go ahead.
What's that?
That was on my computer.
Oh, okay. That's good. Okay. Somebody said something about a good deal. Yeah,
Starting a film or something.
yeah, good. Hey, Aaron, thanks again. Really appreciate your time on this. And yeah, we'll we'll be in touch with some more projects, I'm sure, here soon, and more guest appearances. Because
My wife has been texting me. She's pretty pissed off. She's one of the red-blooded Americans ready to start smoking fools.
I'm telling you, man. That's it just that's what that's what violence does. It triggers more violence, and so it's like I said, it's the Christian in me that says calm down. It's just but sometimes
let me just say this real quick. Yeah, go ahead.
To do.
Yeah.
Go eat.
Okay.
So
okay.
we gotta drop off a little.
Yeah, we'll drop off.
Good deal. Okay.
All right.
Love you guys. Okay, appreciate it.
God
Talk
bless
to you
you.
soon. Okay.